All right, testing, testing. I'm just trying to see if everything is working. And it looks like I am live and ready to go. All right, so let me get everything up here. All right, let's go ahead and start. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is Brandon Clayton. I'm excited about doing my first live YouTube recording. This came about through an interesting turn of events. I was intending to present this to a small fellowship and wasn't able to, so I figured out how to do it live, and very excited to do so. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll go ahead and jump into our Torah portion. The way that this is going to look today is I want to take chapters 28 through 31, one chapter at a time, and just have a discussion, or more so a teaching, on just things that stood out to me that I'll highlight as we go through each chapter. So I'll listen to the chapter and put the words up to follow along, and then we'll have a discussion, and then the next chapter, and so on. Again, it's new for me, so I'm going to try to keep up with any chats that anyone may send. So hopefully I can catch that in time. Matter of fact, let me check to see who's all here now. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm actually showing up live. I can't see it yet, but it may have a lag. That's what I'm hoping. All right, so let me let's see. Okay, I know someone is here, but I can't see my live chat yet, so let me make sure it's going through. All right, email. Let's go. Okay, there you go. All right, so this is the link that I want. I need to resend this out likely. Let me repost this. All right, bear with me. Anyone who is watching and waiting. Okay, there. Let me make sure everybody else got the link. All right, I gotta send it to one more group because I wonder if I sent it to the wrong link. So I'm resending this out. Let me send this. Okay. All right, I think we're good. Okay, so let me start over. Let's see. Yeah. So Shabbat Shalom again. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm excited to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with chapter 28, but before I start there, let's look back at some of the kind of real snapshot, brief snapshot of some of the chapters that has already been covered. So just let's go back a few chapters, starting in chapter 24. Abraham's servant finds a wife, Rebekah, for Isaac. 25, we got Jacob and Esau being born to Rebekah. Esau sells his birthright. 26, Isaac deceives Abimelech about his wife being his sister. We've seen that before with Abraham. Now we're coming up to 27. Isaac blesses Jacob instead of Esau. As you can see in this picture here. You didn't know they had a picture there, did you? Back in those days. Yep, they caught it. But here's that what happened in 27. And we're going to start here today in 28. So highlights are Jacob being sent to Laban. Esau marries an Ishmaelite, and Jacob in his dream with the Jacob's ladder. So I'm going to get us started by putting the scriptures up and having a recording that follows the scriptures. So let's see how that looks. Let me pull that up. And we'll start in 28.
So Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. Then he commanded him,
"Do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Paddan Aram, to the house of your mother's father Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there, from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful, and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner, the land God gave to Abraham."
Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way, and he went to Paddan Aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob, and had sent him to Paddan Aram to take a wife from there, and that when he blessed him, he commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman," and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother, and had gone to Paddan Aram. Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac. So he went to Ishmael and married Mahalath, the sister of Nebaioth, and daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said,
"I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west, and to the east, to the north, and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you, and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you."
When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought,
"Sure, the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it."
He was afraid and said,
"How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven."
Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, though the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying,
If God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth.
All right, and there's our story. One thing I forgot to mention, just a side note here, I may get interrupted. From 3 of my 4 girls are running around here somewhere. I'm actually at my mom's house in Red Oak, and not at my home. So we'll see what happens. So just be patient with me here. But let's jump into the story. So here we start off with Jacob being sent to Laban. And if you remember, so here's the scriptures. He made a big deal about you must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. And let me pull up my pointer so it's easier for you to see. All right, so he made a big deal about not going to the Canaanite women, saying you must not take a wife from the Canaanite women and go to instead to Laban. So what's the big deal about that? Why not go there? So in Genesis 27, if you go back 1 chapter and read Rebecca's words, you'll see that she loathed her life because of the Hittite women that her other son Esau took. So this is a big deal. And I'm pausing here because in our culture, we look at marriage as a culture, maybe not in your family, but as a society, marriage doesn't have the same sensitivity and seriousness, where it's bringing so much hatred or so much grief to the parents. And he's telling him to travel in about 450 miles from where he is now to Padam Aram, to Laban. So I did the math and I said that's about 10 minutes a mile, if that, and calculated to about a week of traveling if you're walking maybe 8 to 12 hours a day. So it takes a while to get there. But why go through all that trouble for finding a wife? So what was the big deal? Does Yahweh care? Does he care about who we marry? Is it that big of a deal to him? Should we just find a nice person? Well, let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 7 and see what his words are. It reads, when Yahweh your God brings you into the land that you are entering to take possession of it, and clears away nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, 7 nations more numerous and mightier than you. And when Yahweh your God gives them over to you, and you defeat them, then you must devote them to complete destruction. And it continues on, saying, you shall make no covenant with them and show no mercy to them. You shall not what? Intermarry with them, giving your daughters to their sons or taking their daughters for your sons. Now this seems strange because, again, going back to our society, we normally won't think that way. We'll just say we have our own criteria and say, well, we'll find a nice person, an attractive person, someone who's doing well for themselves. But Yahweh was very clear about you do not intermarry with certain people. And I think we'll see that he hasn't changed that standard. Why not? Why was this such a big deal? Why not intermarry? Well, when we continue to read in Deuteronomy 7, we start to hear Yahweh's heart. He says, for they would turn away your sons from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of Yahweh would be kindled against you and would destroy you quickly. But thus shall you deal with them. You shall break down their altars and dash in pieces their pillars and chop down their Asherim and burn their carved images with fire. So it's the complete opposite of intermarry. It says you crushed all this stuff they're worshiping. You have nothing to do with them, let alone marriage. Again, why not? Well, if you keep reading, For you are a people holy to Yahweh your God. What does that mean, holy to Yahweh? He's saying, look, you are set apart. You are meant just for me. You're special just for me. That's why you don't intermarry. You don't mix and mingle with the same stuff. Continuing reading here, Yahweh your God, Yahweh your God has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. So you were supposed to be a treasured possession set apart for his use and his use only, not intermarrying with others. So this was a big deal for him. Remember Solomon and his wives. What happened to Solomon? Well, if we go back to 1 Kings, we find out a little bit what happens if we do marry. Those who are not the ones that Yahweh wants us to marry. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women, from the nations concerning which Yahweh had said to the people of Israel, you shall not enter into marriage with them, neither shall they with you, for surely they will turn your heart after their gods. Surely they will. And Solomon clung to these in love. You see that? He clung, see if I can, yeah, right there. He clung to these in love. So the very opposite thing that Yahweh wanted him to do, he clung to. And it's so easy to look at this passage and say, it's not me. I know the younger I was, the easier it was for me to say, that won't happen to me. Oh, I'm bigger than that, I'm better than that. But Solomon, in all his wisdom, man, Solomon was loved so much since his birth, he changed his name to Jedediah. God changed his name to Jedediah, meaning beloved by God. Even he, in all his grandeur, failed at this moment in this temptation. And this is a huge one for us men. When it comes to the woman, you know, you see David, you see Solomon here, you see Samson, so many of the greats fallen. All this strength, all this wisdom, all this righteousness, if you will. Be careful. Be careful who you intermarry. He had 700 wives who were princesses and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not wholly true to Yahweh, his God, as the heart of David, his father, was. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Malcolm, the abomination of the Ammonites. So Solomon did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and did not wholly follow Yahweh, as David, his father, had done. And here's the part that scares me right there, that last part. He did not wholly follow Yahweh. See, it's not that he completely turned his back, but he simply did not wholly follow him. And that's so easy to do. I can have some form of godliness and still pull my heart back from wholly, all my heart, all my soul, all my strength, and substituting it for something else. I depend a little bit on money. I depend a little bit on material blessings. I depend on my own glory. I'm seeking something else instead of wholly devoting my mind, wholly devoting my energy and attention just to him. Okay. Then Solomon built high places of Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and for Molech, the abomination of the Ammonites, and the mountain east of Jerusalem. And so he did on the mountain east of Jerusalem. And so he did for all his foreign wives who made offerings and sacrifice to their gods. And Paul cautions us, man, for that. He says, when you're married, you're divided in who you're pleasing, Yahweh and your wife. And he says he did this for his foreign wives. How could such a lovely thing, or such a beautiful specimen, have such a powerful control of a strong man like that? Yahweh says it happens, and it happens to many of us. And you have to be careful of that. Continuing in reading, he says, and Yahweh was angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from Yahweh, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice And he commanded him concerning this thing that he would not go after other gods, but he did not keep what Yahweh commanded. Let me back up there. So he did not keep what Yahweh commanded. So the caution is here, guys. It makes a big deal to Yahweh, so it needs to be a big deal to us. In the 1 Corinthians 6, you see this idea also about do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. What partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? So it's not talking about not speaking with anyone or hanging out with someone, but being yoked in the sense of having a oneness with them. We need to be careful of that. And it's no point in getting into the details so much, because I think we have a good understanding of when we start to become yoked and we start to have really close friends and acquaintances with those who don't practice and believe what we believe. Corinthians, I think 15, 1 Corinthians 15, I think says it. Don't be misled. Bad company corrupts your character. Look, we have to go to work. We're going to mix and mingle and speak, but we need to be careful who we are aligning ourselves with, according to these scriptures. Why else was it important to Yahweh to have husband and wife as equally yoked believers? And here's the last thing I share on that in Malachi 2:13. And this thing you do, you cover Yahweh's altar with tears, with weeping and groaning, because he no longer regards the offering or accepts it with favor from your hand. But you say, why does he not? Because Yahweh has witness between you and the wife of your youth, to whom you have been faithless, though she is your companion and your wife by covenant. Did he not make them one with a spirit, with a portion of the spirit in their union? And what was the one God seeking? Godly offspring. Look, he's talking about the oneness that comes between a husband and wife. What was he seeking? He wanted godly offspring. What happens when two come together who are not of God's seed? Or one is and one is not? Well, I know what he desires. He desires two people of godly seed to have godly offspring. So I can't get into details of understanding what all that means, but it becomes clear that what his purpose has been all along, not just to be with anyone, to marry anyone, but to be sure we're careful. And they understood that. Isaac and Rebecca, Rachel understood that. Let's move to our next slide. I gotta redo that. All right, just a second, guys. Got to get my slide back up. I think we stopped. About right there. All right, hopefully you guys can hear me. Thanks, Mike, for that text. So hopefully I can speak a little louder and you guys can hear what I'm saying now. A little better. That wasn't loud enough. Let's turn this up. Okay. So as we continue reading, we also see that Esau seeks his father's favor. He says that when he noticed, now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he directed him, you must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. And that Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother and gone to Padan Aram. So when Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife, besides the wife he had, Mahalath, and the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. So why did he take another wife? Well, his whole point from this passage becomes clear. He was trying to please Dad. He's like, oh, okay, that pleases Dad, huh? So I noticed you didn't want him taking a wife from there. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Ishmael. Well, what was the problem with him doing that? Was that a problem? One of the biggest problems with him trying to do this is back in the scriptures. I didn't highlight it here, but if you remember, he had decided to kill his brother as soon as his father was dead. So, but yet he still wants to please his dad while having hatred in his heart towards his brother. He wants to have an outward show that he's doing something right, but while in his heart there was just the opposite. And we know from the scriptures this is not what Yahweh desires. So it says, but I say to, I'm starting in verse 22, 22, but I say to, um, but I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says you fool will be liable to the hell of fire. So if you're offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. So he should have first sought to be reconciled to his brother if he truly wants to please his father, because what father will be pleased with some offerings if they are at odds with their sibling at the point of killing them? Now, I have 4 daughters, and I've been in this situation where my daughter wants to come up to me and hug me and hold me, and while just seconds before, she's being angry and hateful towards her sister, or at that moment, she still is. I'm saying, no, no, no. You get right with your sister, because you both are my daughters, and I love you both. So that was the problem with him trying to go and do that. In Amos, we also learn, and this is one of many scriptures, that Yahweh does not delight in our sacrifices and the feasts and assemblies. In verse 22, he says, even though you offer me your burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. And the peace offerings of your fattened animals, I will not look upon them. Take away from me the noise of your songs and the melody of your harps. So he did not desire just these outward shows, but he wanted us to seriously be right. In Matthew 15, these people honor me with their lips, but their what? Heart is far from me. So the question I have is it possible to do the right stuff? Is doing the right stuff equal to being righteous? Are those the same? I'm doing the right stuff, and so therefore I'm righteous. Will those two be the same? Well, I think you know the answer to that. I've learned from being married that you can do the right thing and still be wrong. You can have the wrong heart or the wrong spirit about it and still be wrong with God. So you do not want to fall into that trap. So we're going to have to say no to that one. This is not equal. Just doing the right stuff is not mean you're righteous. Well, I came to church. I'm reading my Bible. I said I'm sorry. I said I forgive you. But that doesn't make you righteous. We need to go to a heart level and to an attitude level. Hebrews chapter 4 reminds us that he checks our attitude and the thoughts, the thoughts, and he judges the thoughts and attitudes of our heart for what is right and what's wrong, not just what our actions were. And in Genesis 28, we hear this talk about Jacob's ladder. Now, this is really intriguing to me because I heard so much about Jacob's ladder growing up and got a little bit here. I'm sure there's so much that we can share and talk about here about it that maybe you've heard. But I will say this, in John chapter 151, you also hear this discussion about heaven opening up. Let me see if I can, there we go. Heaven opening up and angels ascending and descending on the Son of Man. So you get the same idea here in this text. So my question here is, what was the big purpose? What was the big picture? What was the purpose of this dream? And as we look at the purpose of the dream, it starts to become clear that Yahweh's making a great deal of promises. He's starting to say, I promise to give you this land, Jacob. I promise that you're going to have great offspring. You shall spread all over. You shall be, I'll bless all your families. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to always protect you. bring you back from the land, and I will accomplish what I promised. And I highlight all that here. So you can see that he's making all these promises to him. So what was the purpose of this dream? The purpose of this dream looks like pretty clearly it was a big encouragement for Jacob. Jacob needed some encouragement. He had just gone through a very trying time, where he's deceiving his brother twice. He's running away now. And you can't imagine, as a human being, in the back of his mind, he's thinking, is this right? Is this from God? Am I doing this right? But to get a dream that's that vivid and clear, give him that stamp of approval and say, yes, you're on the right course. So despite the deceitful circumstances that surrounded Jacob and Jacob's blessing, Yahweh wanted to encourage him that he indeed was chosen and truly blessed. Romans 8 says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Now, even though he was a mess and messed up, Yahweh wanted to encourage him that it's okay and it's all good. And that's got to be good news for many of us and for all of us listening. Because if your life looks like mine, I'm excited to be sitting down and sharing the scriptures at all, because I'm humbled by how patient he's been with me in my sin, my rebelliousness oftentimes. But he says, look, I still got you. I still have a plan for you. Oh, my dog. All right. So I want to look into that more. And we know that in all things he works together for the good of those who call according to his purpose. Look at some of the people, despite what they've done. He says, I still got you. I still have a plan. I'm still going to bless you. Abraham. Remember, Abraham decided that, or his wife more so, but he went along with the plan. Let's sleep with the servant to have a son, because this is not going to work out. But guess what? We still ended up with Isaac. Yahweh still blessed that anyway. Jonah, he ran away completely from the plan, but we still see Jonah calling the city of Nineveh to repentance. Yahweh was still, I'm amazed at this, because Yahweh was still patient with Jonah. When many of us would have said, look, this guy's a coward, he didn't want to do it, I ain't doing it no more. And many of us have done that. We've given up or just said, I'm quitting, I messed up, and we think that God has kind of just wiped our hands and said, okay, we're moving on. But that's not the case. He's saying, you're my man. David, we know the story. Bathsheba, he's done, right? Nope. That's where Solomon came from. Solomon came from a relationship like, yep. Even your mess, I'm still going to bless if you love me. For those who love me, I'm going to make it work out so well. Elijah, he was suicidal, running away, saying, I want to just die. But yet, he never saw death, actually. Yahweh took him up. Moses has a father. He delivered Israel through the power of Yahweh. Peter, we know the story, denied the Messiah himself. Did Yahweh give up? No, I'm going to work for the good anyway. We're going to use that, and I'll make him into one of my leaders. Gideon, who was fearful, became a mighty warrior. Paul, who was a murderer, is an apostle of the Messiah. And Rahab, unbelievable, whose life was a prophecy to say, look, I'm going to work for the good of those who love me, is in the lineage of Yahshua Messiah himself. Unbelievable. Now, we look at these people in these circumstances today, and we would see someone who's suicidal, someone who can't talk right, someone who tried to have a child through other circumstances, just flat out running away. We'll see like this is not godly men, and good things won't happen. So Yahweh said, I'm not done. I'm going to use that. Was it his plan for Jacob to be deceptive? Was it his plan for Rahab to be a prostitute? Absolutely not. Yahweh has nothing to do with sin, but however, he uses it in such an amazing way that it looks like it was part of his plan the whole time. Let's go to chapter 29. I'm going to check to make sure I have no more questions or notes here. All right, so we're going to go to chapter 29. And let me pull up my little video. This is going to be about Jacob, marries Leah and Rachel. and Leah having children. And let me start our...
So Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. Then he came to the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the open country, with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds,
My brothers, where are you from?
We're from Haran.
They replied. He said to them,
Do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson?
Yes, we know him.
They answered. Then Jacob asked them.
Is he well?
Yes, he is.
They said.
And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep.
Look,
He said.
the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to pasture.
We can't,
They replied.
until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep.
While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was their shepherd. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah, so she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home, and there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him,
You are my own flesh and blood.
After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him,
Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be.
Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said,
I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel.
Laban said,
It's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me.
So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban,
Give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to make love to her.
So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob. And Jacob made love to her. And Laban gave his servant Zilpah to his daughter as her attendant. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban,
What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?
Laban replied,
It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week. Then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work.
And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her attendant. Jacob made love to Rachel also, and his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah, and he worked for Laban another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive, but Rachel remained childless. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said,
It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now.
She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said,
Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too.
So she named him Simeon. Again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said,
Now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons.
So he was named Levi. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said,
This time I will praise the Lord.
So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children.
Well, all right. In chapter 29, verse 9, it says, Jacob came near and rolled a stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock. Well, I was looking up and reading quite a bit about what this well looked like, and it probably looks something like this. So you got a piece here, you got a hole on top, and the guy said, he was asking them, why haven't you rolled it away? What are y'all doing? Just sitting out here wasting time, in essence. And he said, we can't because we don't have all these sheep here. Not everybody's here. What does that mean? Well, if you read a little bit and do a little research, you come to find out that, and let me read it here, it was usually a pretty big stone. So a couple of reasons why they wouldn't have done that is, one is it took 2 or 3 men to roll it away. You may have had only 1 or 2 people. Maybe this was a big rock that took a couple to roll away. And this is just FYI, did you know information, but I thought it was interesting. Lastly, when you keep pulling it backwards and forwards, the stone, you can get a lot of debris in there. So you don't want stuff falling inside of there unnecessarily when you can just one person roll it back and everybody gets something. So there may have been an agreement there. And lastly, is to make sure nobody overdoes it. So we can look at, they were just trying to keep it equal, make sure everybody is equally sharing the well and how much water is there. So a couple of references there. What is this you done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why didn't have you deceive me? And he says, complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other one also in return for serving me another 7 years. So what does Yahweh think about this marriage proposal? This seems like maybe this is just how things are done. Does he have a care one way or another how things are done? Well, if you look at Leviticus 18, it clearly states, do not take your wife's sister as a rival wife and have sexual relations with her while your wife is living. That's a problem. So also in Genesis 29, you find out that he opened Leah's womb, but not Rachel, because he saw that Leah was hated, and Yahweh did not like that. So in the ancient Near East, it was tradition to marry off the older daughter first. It was a social stigma to have the older daughter and to have the young one. So this is actually still practiced today, where in some cultures in that same area will make sure that the oldest are married off. And some people have taken advantage of that in different ways. But that's been a practice. All right. Move on here if I can get my clicker to work. All right, there you go. If you notice that Leah, the first child she has, it says in verse 32, and Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, because Yahweh has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. So we learned that she named her son according to what she was going through at the time. And it was very common to do this. They would name them on the basis of 3 different categories, if you will. So it could be on the character of the person. It could be because of the purpose or reason for their being born, or for something they hope for. So, and real quickly, you see that with Rebecca, this body was like a hairy garment. If you remember, that was Esau. So she named him Esau, which means hairy. And Leah, as we'll see here, as we saw here in the last verse, this time I'm going to praise Yahweh. So the Hebrew word for praise is Yahudah, or as translated Judah, because they dropped the Y into the J there, but they use Judah, which means slave. And then lastly, Leah also, this time, my husband would be attached to me. So attached is Levi, meaning attached. So it was coming to be that. Now, I say that because today names don't mean very much to us. We name, all kinds of random names, which I'm not going to mention random names, so you don't feel like, hey, that's me. I have my name doesn't mean anything. But we don't think like that so much. We just give a name that sounds good, or maybe it's not as common, something like that. But names were very powerful at this period of time. Was it just people and their practices that did that? Or did Yahweh feel the same way, or did he feel one way or the other? How important is the name to Yahweh? In Genesis 17:5, you start seeing that even Yahweh, when he wanted to bring about a great change, would change the name of someone. So you see here, he's changing Abram, which means exalted father, to Abraham, father of a multitude. From Jacob or Yaakov, which is deceiver or supplanter, there's a lot of different ways you can say that, to Israel, which means prevails with God. So why change the name? Why is it such a big deal? Well, right now the point is it was a big deal to him. He could have just said, you're still Israel, but you did something great. You're still Abram, no big difference, just a name. But Yahweh thinks it's a big deal. I mentioned this earlier about Solomon because he loved him so much that call him Jedediah. Wouldn't that be cool? He says, I love you so much and what you've done so great, I'm going to call you by a new name. Looking at more here. Sarah, Sarai, actually, I think is how it's said. It went from Sarah. Actually, both of them means pretty much princess. I'm looking at the root word. Simon became Peter. Simon, which means like listen or Shema, became stone and rock. And James and John became sons of thunder. Now, these are all places where Yahweh himself was given these names. Oh, no. Okay, lost that again. But these are places where Yahweh himself were given these names. Let me just go to the camera here while I get this together. He's saying to people, look, this is what's important to me. And but why is this such a big deal? I want to look at one last slide that talks about the importance of this name, or names in general. Give me a second. Pull this up. All right. There we go. All right. Let's see. Almost up there. So I want to just tell you, but it's easy to show you. All right, so here it is here. All right, how important is the name to Yahweh? So we see in Exodus 20, it's so important that it made it among one of the commands. You shall not take the name of Yahweh, your God, in vain, for Yahweh will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. So what's the big deal about a name? Now, if you want to do a deeper study, Shem is the Hebrew word for name, which points to someone's character. Saying if you say in the name of such and such, you're saying in the character or in the spirit of this person. But it also means a proper noun, which someone says their personal mark. This is I'm Brandon. That's my personal marking or my name, my proper noun. So Yahweh intends for both. Do not take both in vain. Do not make either one empty or in vain or without value. So when you start to examine that, I'm going to look at just two scriptures where you find his name. But before that, did you know that Yahweh placed his name in scripture nearly 7,000 times? 7,000 times. And 7,000 times, Bible translators substituted with a generic title such as Lord or God. So you were probably asking yourself, then why haven't I seen that, Brandon? Why haven't I seen the Yahweh for 7,000 times? And here's the one that really was a surprise to me. Did you know that Yahweh is the seventh most commonly used word in Hebrew scriptures? What's the big deal? Well, if it's a big deal to him, I'm trying to make sure it's a big deal to me. For it to have 7,000 times, for it to be the seventh most commonly used word in the scriptures, it's probably a big deal. And I have to say also that that seventh most commonly used includes words like a and the and, even those words included. It came on top in the top seven. So it's a pretty big deal. But why haven't I seen it? Well, because of what we just said a second ago. 7,000 times the Bible translators have translated and substituted for Lord or God. Now, there's a lot of history behind that, but in short, it's because those who well-intentioned Jews, um, mostly, decided that this name is too holy and that they want to change it. So we don't want to say this name, so we're going to come up with something different. And so many people even today carry on that tradition. And the preface in our Bible tells us that they're doing that. They'll just flat out say we're going to continue their tradition that's been followed for many years and continue to do this. So that's what's been done. It's easy to find that, but I just encourage you, be very careful following a tradition that Yahweh did not implement. So, matter of fact, as we go further here, let's look at two examples because we don't want to do I don't want to do a long study on this, but it's really a big deal to him when we talk about names. God also said to Moses, "Say this to the people of Israel: the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac and Jacob, and has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations." And again in Isaiah 42:8, he says, "I am the Lord, that is my name." Huh? That's your name? The Lord? "My glory I give to no other, nor my praise to carved idols." Now you notice that it's capitalized, and this is how we normally see it in our Bibles. It would be kind of like this lowercase caps look. But you start to get confused if you start looking at Exodus where he says, "Tell them the Lord sent you," or "I am the Lord, that's my name." Your name is the Lord? Well, as I mentioned to you a second ago, that isn't his name. When you look at an interlineary Bible, where you can see both the Hebrew and English side by side, you start to see more clearly that, let's highlight it here, the Lord and Yahweh is the Lord is replaced with Yahweh. So you can look up the Greek, the Hebrew number for it. You can see your head, Vahe, the actual characters in Hebrew. Everything here is pointing to is not the Lord. Now, some people may argue here about the pronunciation. No one knows how to say it, and so on and so forth. But we know for sure it's not the Lord or Adonai or Shem. So why replace it when he never replaced it? I just say to us, let's be careful here where he's asking us to be careful. We see the same thing in this Isaiah 42:8. He says, "Do not do this. Do not replace and make my name empty." Yahweh actually means something. It means he who causes to exist, and something really close to that, unless maybe a shortened version. But it means something. It doesn't mean the Lord. As a matter of fact, not to get into a long study on this again, the God of gods, Baal, the Baal God, when translated, translates the Lord. So it's kind of funny how synonymous that is with what's been replaced with Yahweh. But I'll let you do your own study on that. I just wanted to encourage you to come back to what is actually originally written there in the scriptures and not what's substituted. All right, let's move on. Oh, okay. I think I've clicked too many times. I got to figure this out. All right, so let me get this back up. Select this, and I think I have an idea what I'm going to do next time. So I'm going to go to where we left off here. Okay, so we're going to pick up right now in Genesis 30 and read that story. Let's read Genesis 30. I'm going to put the video clip on and pause my voice here so you can hear.
Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the open country.
All right, trying to figure out what's going on with the video. What I may do is just read it instead of having this play. But let me try one more thing first.
So Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. Then he commanded him,
Do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Padan Aram, to the house of your mother's father Bethuel. Take a wife for your son.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read it myself since it's not working. I was reading it for about a couple of minutes, and I realized I didn't have volume, so let's start it again. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. She said to Jacob, Give me children, or I shall die. Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. Give me children, or I shall die. Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. Oh, okay, what's going on? Now in the place of God who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb. Then she said, Here's my servant, Bilhah. Go in to her, so she may give birth on my behalf, that even I might have children through her. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, God has judged me and has also heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. So she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Then Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, good fortune has come. So she called his name Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, happy am I, for women have called me happy. So she called his name Asher. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But she said to her, is it a small matter that you have taken my husband? Would you take away also my son's mandrakes? Rachel said, then would you take away my son's mandrakes also? Rachel said, then he may lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went to him and said, you must come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So he lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob his son. Leah said, God has given me my wages, because I gave my servant to my husband. So he called his name Isaac. And Leah conceived again, and she bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband would honor me because I have borne him six sons. So she called his name Zebulun. Afterwards she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, saying, may Yahweh add to me another son. So we see here that there was a lot of sons being had. Just to look at the big picture of everything, you see that, let's pull up my little marker. All right, you see that I started Abraham and Isaac, and it's numbered in order from when they were born. So the first four are Leah, and then Rachel had the last two finally coming from her. But I always thought it was interesting, not always actually, but just recently when I'm going through this, I thought it was very interesting that the holy 12 tribes of Israel, can you imagine that they were birthed through such turmoil and such rivalry and so much deception and so much going on here? Again, Yahweh still uses this. But how interesting that the sons were even named in the moments of their distress. Not something so glorious or even righteous, but just the pains of trying to be loved by their husband and be um, better than the other sister. All right, so in our last chapters in chapter 31, I'm saving a couple of things from chapter 30 that I want to get into chapter 31. So I want to try one more time to see if I can get this to work. So let's see here. Okay, this doesn't look like it want to work. Let me try. Everything else is good. All right, I guess I'll just read this one. Yes, this is my daughter going to sleep. All right, so let's go ahead and read it ourselves. All right, starting in verse 1. I'm going to pause this just 1 second so let me put it down. When Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's. Let me make it bigger. All that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has gained all his wealth. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Then Yahweh said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before. But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore spotted. If he said, the stripes shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore stripes. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that mated with the flock were striped, spotted, and mottled. Then the angel said to me in the dream, Jacob. And I said, here I am. And he said, lift up your eyes and see all the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you are anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now rise and go out from this land and return to the land of your kindred. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you to do, do. So Jacob arose and set his sons and wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the livestock and his possessions that he had acquired in Padan Aram, to go into the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob tricked Laban to the Aramean by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all that he had, and rose and crossed the Euphrates, and set his face toward the hill country, Gilead. When it was told to Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsmen with him, and pursued him for 7 days, and followed close after him to the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what have you done, that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly to trick me, and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre? Why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And now you have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my God? Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I thought that you would not take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your God shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have taken that is yours, and take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the 2 female servants. But he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and into Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods, and put them in the camel's saddle, and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let not my lord be angry, that I cannot rise before you, for the way of women is upon me. So he searched, but did not find the household God. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, "What is my sin? What is my sin? That you have hotly pursued me, for you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. The ewes and the female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was, day by day. By day the heat consumed me, and the cold by night. And my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served 14 years for your two daughters, and 6 years for your flocks, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. So I saw my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you last night." Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, "The daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flock, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters, or for their children whom they have borne?" Verse 44. "Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Galeed. Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me today." Therefore he named it Galeed and Mizpah, for he said, "Yahweh watch between you and me, when we are out of one another's sight. If you oppress my daughters, or if you take wives besides my daughters, although no one is with us, see, God is witness between you and me." Then Laban said to Jacob, "See this heap and this pillar, which I have set between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me to do harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, and the God of their father, judge between us." So Jacob swore by the father of his father Isaac. And Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. And they ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his grandchildren, his daughters, and blessed them. I think I left off as finished. I believe it says then they departed. I'm going to start out by looking at a couple of characters here, major characters, one being Rachel. So Rachel, some things that we already know is, she was a shepherdess. We don't see many shepherdesses, I guess you can say it that way. Most of them were men, but since Laban didn't have any boys, likely, she was one of the people who would take care of the sheep. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. So she had a nice figure and a nice appearance. That's what the scriptures say. So she was clearly attractive. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. We start to see some of Rachel's character in the fact that she's envious of her sister and how she handles that. As opposed to going to Yahweh, she starts to turn her attention to Jacob, saying, "Jacob, give me children, or I'm going to die." As if Jacob was the one who was responsible for her having children or not. He says, I'm in the place of God. Rightly so, because he is asking him to do something that only God can do. While she's looking at him, he was looking at God. And so she should have been as well. Then he said, "Here's my servant, Bilhah. Go into her so that she may give birth on my behalf." that even I may have children through her. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife. So this was her solution. Here's my servant, take another wife. And I don't believe, although this is a common practice, I don't believe this is a practice that Yahweh um, embraced and liked. Then Rachel said, God has judged me and also heard my voice and has given me a son. Therefore, she called his name Dan. So she felt rightly judged in her finally having a son, even though it was through her servant. So this is how she viewed a righteous judgment. And I will note here also that there were other women in her situation, and she could have handled it differently, where she could have, like Hannah, cried out to God and asked for a child. But she came to her husband and blamed him for it. In verse 8, then Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. Unfortunately for her, it became a tug of war and a battle and war against her sister. Instead of this being a spiritual warfare in which she would take this up with her Father in heaven, it was for her all of a competition. So she named him after because she prevailed. I win. I won. Imagine that attitude. You're having a kid, and it's for you that I won now, instead of praise Yahweh. Thank you for your mercy. But this was the attitude, and I'm pointing this out, and because every character in the Bible has all kinds of sins, but this particularly stood out to me because um, she attracted Jacob's attention because of how she lived. And it's easy to assume that everything else is great. She's righteous, she's got things, she's on the right side, but if she has some serious character flaws and holes here, and I think that's something that we need to be aware of as well when picking a spouse or encouraging others to pick one and not go looking for, oh, of course, they're nice and they're attractive, but when we get down to it, we see these characters. In verse 14, in days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. Now, I should have put a slide up over this because this is really foreign to us because you don't hear, at least I didn't grow up hearing anything about mandrakes. Mandrakes was this type of root from a plant, and it was believed to increase their chances of having a child. I think I read somewhere that it was like an aphrodisiac, but what seems for sure scientifically, it was on the scale of a narcotic and could cause you to have a hallucination. So a very strong, potent drug, if you will, and she was going by this means to have a child. Now think about that. What is that saying about where she places her trust? At first, she went to Jacob saying, you give me a child, I'm going to die. Stop doing this to me. She's fighting her sister, saying, I'm winning now. And now she's turning to plants and medicinals and superstition even to say, this is what I'm going to do. Do not follow that example, but we have to be aware that just because on the outside someone seems to have it together, or just because Jacob chose it, or just because she's in the Bible, I need to follow her example. I've heard people say things like that. Well, such and such in the Bible, they did this. So, Rachel, 8 man Jacob have kids, so therefore she is not our Messiah. She is not our Savior or our example by which we should be following. Sure, we can learn a lot from them, but we must turn to our Messiah for the ultimate standard and say, does he approve of this? Does he want it? Well, they dressed this way. Was that the way he wanted to dress? Well, Rahab was a prostitute, so, he used her. Well, Jacob deceived, so sometimes you have to. So we need to be careful with those types of arguments. Laban had gone to shear sheep, and Rachel did what? She stole her father's household goods. It pretty much says that why do you need to steal your father's household goods? Some people believe that the household goods will often be used to figure out, to kind of foretell she don't want him to see where they're going. Or it's going to increase her chances of having a baby. It could be a number of things, but the fact that she values him, put value in them, to tell us a lot about her character and where she's placing her trust. And it's probably a lot similar to Solomon, who did not wholly devote himself to Yahweh. It wasn't as if she turned her back completely, but Yahweh may have been another powerful God to her. Maybe the most powerful, but definitely not almighty alone. And that's the kind of the word of syncretism, where you combining these different practices, customs, and religions together to form something that's suitable to you. There's no reason to be taking these things, because if this is blocks of wood or silver, they have no power. But she put power into it. I believe they did have power. So continue looking at that. And she said to her father, "Let not my Lord be angry that I cannot rise before you. Why? Because I'm on my period. The way of women is upon me." Completely lying. So that's what happens when you do one lie, right? You have to continue to do more to cover it up. So he said, "What are you doing?" And again, we can see what she's valued. She's very fleshly and being worldly and not trusting in the providence of Yahweh. But he will provide and make a way here. So she's going there. I also want to take a look at let's see. Let me click through this. I mentioned this already, where you have two other situations where women, they did not come back to the man or some other thing, but they went to God and asked God why this was happening the way it is. Alright, so let's look to that. I want to look at one more person, and I can't help but to look at him because it's been all over this book, all over this section, and that's Laban. Who is Laban? What do we know about Laban? What have we gathered so far? Is he a righteous man? Is he a man worthy of following in his example? What can we learn from him? Well, let's look at the situation with Abraham's servant and Rebekah. If you remember, it says, as soon as he saw the ring and bracelets on his sister's arm and heard the words of Rebekah, thus the man spoke to me, blah, blah, blah. It says, Rebekah, her brother, whose name was Laban, ran out toward the man. So he took off running when he heard and saw this ring. And that means not much here, but let's put some things together. I put forth that he likely was very materialistic. He was into a lot of shiny things and those types of things. So let's keep reading. The thing, Jacob wanted Rachel, and he says, "Look, behold, Rachel is before you. Take her and go, and let her be with you, your wife." However, he changed his mind. And this is what Jacob was talking about and complaining about. He says one thing, then he says another. Paul says in, I forget what chapter, I think it's two places in the New Testament, he says, I do not say yes, yes, and no, no in the same breath. He says, I'm not going to be flip-flopping into preachers like this. But Laban had a horrible reputation of doing so. I changed my mind. I wanted to be in 10 days. And then she may go. And right before that, it may have had something to do with when he said, yes, you can take her, he brought out these costly ornaments. Both him and his mother received some great garments. So I'm not sure, but I don't know if he's trying to get more out of him, but it starts to get that feel because you see what motivates him. So he says, no, wait 10 days, please. After saying, take her and go. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, surely you are bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Stay with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, you should therefore say me for nothing. Tell me, what should your wages be? Rachel and them, Leah, did not feel excited about how everything went down, so that we may not know all the details here, but it seemed that something didn't go right. He says, are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. So they felt sold, and they knew that he used up all the money, either by eating it, buying food, or I don't know how he used it up. But he did not handle that transaction well. His daughters felt like trash. They felt like possessions and pieces of items and not honored in this whole process. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife." But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob and said, "I changed my mind. We will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years." Wow, how hurtful. So to be told this one thing and clearly decide to do something different. I'm going to give you this one and then 7 more years, or just another seven. This is my life. I don't get that back up. And now when Jacob's taking the lead, says, Laban is smart enough to realize that, look, he has blessed me because of you. And it said, we find also, but why did you steal my God? What are you doing with God? There's only one God, but this was Laban. This is where he was. And they made an agreement to leave. He said, good, let it be as you said. I'm sorry, they made an agreement to that he would take the spotted and separate sheep and so on. And he agreed to it. He said, good, let it be just like you said. But what happened? I think we can imagine what happened next. I just gotta get my spot. Come up to that. All right. All right. I'm trying to get this quick. Okay, there you go. But that day, Laban removed all the ones that he was supposed to take, the stripes and the spotted. He took them all the speckles and so forth. He took them and he set a distance of 3 days between himself and Jacob. So he went hundreds of miles away. Said he's going to be honest, or he didn't say he's going to be honest, but after that, he's had a good deal here, and then took them all away. Go to the next slide. Sorry, going a little slow here. All right, let me see if I can figure out why this is going. This is probably going to pop up here in a second. All right, that's not it. Okay, that was the last slide I wanted to see. So great. So just in summary, we're gonna back up here. But I just kind of summarize. So we see that Jacob is sent to Laban, and that marriage is very important. We start to learn a little bit about the name being important, and we see the character of both Rachel and Laban coming out. And we can go into Leah and Jacob as well, but I'm looking at that stood out to me. So that's my little synopsis of chapters 28 through 31 for the Torah portion today. Hope you found something useful there. Definitely love to hear back from you. It's my first one, so I'll be looking at it myself to find out what goes well and what I want to change up. But either way, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time. All right, peace out.